Phrolovawuwa came out yesterday, and aside from all the compliments I've seen about her story, one other thing has been very clear to the people in the community. Phrolovawuwa's signature weapon is ridiculously powerful, maybe a bit too powerful. So that got me thinking, how are signature weapons handled in Wuthering Waves, and could it be handled better? Now first, let me start out by saying that I think it is completely justifiable that the best in slot weapon of a character is their signature. That is kind of obvious, that's the entire point of a signature weapon. I think it is also completely fine if a signature weapon is noticeably better than every other option. That's completely fine. But what is not good in my opinion is when the difference between the signature weapon and every other option is so big that all the other options just feel like it's not worth playing the character. Every single one of the big gachas has these signature weapons after all. Weapons in Wuthering Waves and Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail has the Light Cone system, and then finally Zenless Zone Zero obviously has the W engine system. So it is by no means strange that Wuthering Waves has the concept of a signature weapon. However, I think it is quite ridiculous when you compare a signature weapon to the standard banner weapon, and I see a 40% improvement. Because that is what the situation is with Phrolovawuwa, as well as some other characters, primarily Brant. Brant and Phrolovawuwa are in my opinion by far the most egregious of the examples of characters that have signature weapons that are just so much better than the rest. Wuthering Waves' weapon system has always been way more focused on 5-star weapons, and the difference between a signature weapon and the next best option has always been relatively high, especially when you compare it to Genshin Impact. So it's not like this is some kind of new issue. This is more so just a development upon an already existing issue to a point where it's starting to get concerning. And I think Phrolovawuwa's case is especially concerning because she is a rectifier character. Rectifier characters have always, and I mean always, had one saving grace. If they are primarily a damage dealer, they always had one thing to fall back on. Even if Cosmic Ripples is kind of a mediocre weapon, Stringmaster was so incredibly powerful that for every single rectifier character, there was at least one safety net. If you simply have Stringmaster, then you would be completely covered for your rectifier damage dealing characters. It is so with Yinlin because it's obviously her signature weapon, for Zhezhi it's barely worse than Rhyme Draped Sprouts, and for Phoebe it's also one of her best in slot options. However, for Cantarella and Phrolovawuwa, the difference is a bit higher than it would be with most weapons. In a vacuum, I would consider this to be pretty normal. Honestly, having one weapon that's just basically best in slot on every character would be a bit ridiculous. But here's the issue. There's not really an alternative to Stringmaster. Stringmaster is just by far the best rectifier in the game. It's always the second best in slot, except for a few exceptions. So if Stringmaster is significantly worse than the signature weapon, what does that say about literally every other weapon? You start having a character where if you don't have the signature weapon, your runs are simply infinitely slower than they would be if you had the signature. If you looked at the Wuthering Waves Pridwen tier list, then you can see that Phrolovawuwa is ranking rather low, and the only reason that this is the case is because Pridwen ranks characters at S0R0, aka without their signature weapon. And without signature weapon, Phrolovawuwa's performance tanks so much to where she can't even be considered an Apex character within the Tower of Adversity. And that is in my opinion the real issue. It's not about signature weapons being better than other weapons. That should just be expected and be normal. It's about characters being balanced around having their signature weapons and not presenting us with a good alternative. Phoebe was given the Ocean's Gift weapon in version 2.1, which was, in my opinion, a pretty good alternative. It was in fact almost the same performance as Cosmic Ripples. But recent characters like Brant, Cardathea, and Phrolovawuwa aren't getting alternatives, and Cardathea and Brant have the saving grace of simply being able to turn on Emerald of Genesis. But Phrolovawuwa's signature weapon is so ridiculously overtuned that Stringmaster starts looking like a standard weapon, and if you start actually trying to rely on Cosmic Ripples, you are in for a horrible time, because Cosmic Ripples is an incredibly mediocre weapon. Static Miss and Emerald of Genesis have crit substats as well as energy regen. Emerald of Genesis even has attack in its passive for attack scaling DPS characters. However, Phrolovawuwa is stuck with a massive attack stick, which is unfortunate because she already has a lot of attack in her own kit, and additionally, she gets energy regen, which is useless to her, and basic damage bonus, which is almost useless to her. If Cardathea and Brant were any other weapon type, they would be horribly messed up. What if Brant was a broadblade character? What would he do? Lustrous Razor would have absolutely no benefit to him, and we'd be looking at a situation even worse than Phrolovawuwa, because his kit just needs so much ER that it's ridiculous. Cardathea would be entirely cooked if she was, for example, a Rectifier character, because she wouldn't be able to rely on Emerald of Genesis. The standard banner options might have been good at the beginning of the game, but weapons have been given such strong effects that the standard banner weapons simply cannot compete anymore. Compare Lethean Elegy to, let's say, Verdant Summit. Verdant Summit was just 60% damage bonus with a crit substat, which, while that is powerful, cannot compare to 32% damage bonus, 12% attack, and 32% damage amplification. Damage amplification is a ridiculously powerful stat that not enough people are talking about. It used to just be exclusive to Ultra Skills, making Ultra Skills uniquely powerful in their own right, but ever since Phoebe, it's been added into character kits and weapons, which greatly diminishes the power of the game's central mechanic. And all that for what? Just to sell more of a signature weapon? With Brant and Cardathea, you can simply use the excuse that they are not attack scaling characters. Their weapons are as powerful as they are on these characters, because, well, the generic attack-based options just won't work that well on them. Because Brant is primarily energy regen scaling, and Cardathea is entirely HP scaling. But Phrolovawuwa is a regular attack scaling DPS. Unlike Cardathea and Brant, other weapons should have synergy with Phrolovawuwa's kit. And in fact, they do. Whispers of Sirens and Stringmaster have effects that should in theory be incredibly powerful on Phrolovawuwa. Giving her Havoc Resistance Ignore on basically all of Hecate's attacks? That sounds insanely strong. But the signature weapon is just so ridiculously overtuned and drugged up that it starts to look like child's play. So how would I solve this issue? Simple. Make new standard banner weapons. It's been a year since the game came out, and honestly I think it would be completely fine if Kuro Games added 5 more weapons to the standard banner, having more varied effects that have more synergy with different types of characters. We are at a point where most players that have been playing since launch have every single standard banner weapon, so that would give us an excellent new thing to aim for. We'd still have to pull for these weapons, but unlike limited time weapons, they would be permanently available. Is there literally anyone who would be against this idea of adding more standard banner weapons? Think about it. They could add a new standard banner rectifier that actually has a crit substat. Maybe give it a high base attack of 587 and a crit damage substat, and then give it the regular energy regen that all standard banner weapons have, with a not super amazing, but still a good passive. For example, to increase the damage of resonance skills. Or give us some gauntlets, which would be more focused on resonance liberation damage. The passives don't even need to be comparable to earlier signature weapons like GNs. They can just be weaker alternatives that have more varied passives that are able to benefit more different characters. If you're a Rectifier character and you don't do much basic attack damage, Cosmic Ripples isn't going to be that useful for you, so maybe add an alternative that buffs basically anything else. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, be sure to join my Discord, which is linked in the description. Additionally, if you just want to see more of me, you can also check the link in the description to see my second channel. I primarily post Punishing Grey Raven content, but I kinda just make videos about whatever I want to. But that'll be all from me. Peace.